We have arrived in Fort Augustus, and as you can see, the bridge has been closed off to road traffic. This is one of the main points where the Caledonian Canal has to pass the main road, and it seems very busy this morning. Yachts just gone by. Excuse me, dry throat, and now the bridge is being opened to passenger traffic. There was a railway branch here which closed, I think, in about 1941. I need to check on that. I've seen Station Road, and I've also seen some things in the river or canal, whichever you look at it, which could have been bridge piers. We'll take a closer look at them in a minute. This is the river going through Fort Augustus, as opposed to the Caledonian Canal. And as I pan up there, we are now looking into Loch Ness, and I believe that is where we are going on our boat. So let's move on and see what we can find, shall we? Compulsory exercise. Up and down, up and down. There we go, round the corner. And looking towards the locks, which we'll see later.
Federici che si vede, sei tu un coglione. Io volevo fare un po' di... Non rompere il cazzo. No, ci vuoi. Quello se ci stanno i foto sull'albero.
23 miles long, averages 1 mile wide, and according to surveys during the 1990s, a depth of 786 feet was recorded. That is 35 kilometers long, 1.5 kilometers wide, and 239 meters deep. You could put the population of the world into Loch Ness more than 3 times over, and it contains more water than all the lakes, rivers and reservoirs in both England and Wales combined. So there is room for it to conceal a few mysteries. To help understand the scale of the loch, many world-famous landmarks could be completely submerged in Loch Ness. The Eiffel Tower, Golden Gate Bridge and 2 statues of Liberty would all disappear below the surface, as would the hills you see on either side of you. Loch Ness is part of the Great Glen of Scotland, a geological fault line which runs from under the North Sea in the northeast to the edge of the Atlantic shelf in the southwest. It cuts Scotland in 2. The rocks which form the Highlands of Scotland were laid down in warm tropical seas far to the south of the equator more than 500 million years ago. Around 400 million years ago, the continents of North America and Europe collided, and this created the mountainous landscape you can now see on your right-hand side. The earthquake was 30 million years long and formed mountains 2 to 3 times the size of Mount Everest. These mountains are known as the Caledonians. Eventually, North America drifted away, the Atlantic opened, and as the continents entered northern latitude, they drew down upon themselves the great ice ages, and our enormous jagged mountains were eroded to the stumps you see on either side of you during your journey today. When the last ice age finished, around 12,000 years ago, Loch Ness filled with fresh water and took the form you see today. Peat bogs stain the rainwater as it runs off the hills and into the loch. Light is then unable to penetrate the surface, making the loch's waters appear so dark.
Fantastic if you are an animal, because you don't get people there. So all the animals have started congregating over this side of the loch now, because they know there are not many humans on that part of it. One of the main creatures that we tend to see around here are wild goats. Now they're not native to here, but what happened is people used to own them as pets prior to the Highland clearances. And then we had the Highland clearances, people were forcibly moved out of their homes and they weren't able to take their animals with them, so they just let them go. Now this was over 100 years ago now, and these little goats have absolutely thrived and thrived in this area. It's estimated that we've got around 400 there now, and even though the majority of those are bright white in colour, they are still very, very difficult to spot. We often see them though down on the shoreline. Randomly, we will see them in the tops of the trees. And the scariest place we currently see the wild goats are on the sheer cliff faces. So at this time of year, they've got their young with them, and from the age of around 1 week old, these little tiny kids are running up and down the cliff faces, practicing hardcore parkour, living their best lives, thinking it is absolutely wonderful, which for them it may be, but trust me, when you are sailing by and they are running up and down everywhere without a care in the world, it is absolutely terrifying to watch.
And
So
because
we'll
she's
keep our eyes
pointing them
peeled
out,
for
we
those
can't
today
see
as we're
them.
going along. What else have we got? Well, you're in Scotland, so obviously we've
Wild
got
haggis.
deer. We've got lots and lots of deer. In fact, in Scotland, we've got over 1 million deer, and the majority of those are up here in the Scottish Highlands. The main kinds of ones that we'll see are the red deer. So they've got
There's
the
a
big
haggis
antlers,
up on
they
the
are much
hillside.
larger in size. So they are quite noticeable when we tend to see them on the skyline. But there is a very good chance you've seen them as you're driving around today, because like I've said, we've got nearly 1 million of them just up here. But we've also got sika deer, roe deer and fallow deer as well. And they're much smaller, they're a bit more like the Bambi ones that we'll know from the films.
Well,
Now another big creature that we've got in these parts, we've got lots of them over to the left hand side of the loch, and people that live on the right side of the loch do not know they've got this massive creature yet. But I do, because I live on the left, and we always get them in our garden, and that's wild boar. So the wild boar were introduced as part of the forestry project that's going on over there, and that was in the late 1970s. They put 6 in the area, and we got told it will be wonderful. There's so much commercially tightly packed forestry over there that the wild boar will come in, they will turn off the land a wee bit, we'll get some new plants and shoots going, some new insects, some little animals will be able to walk through, and it will be perfect over there. But that did not happen. Of course it didn't. They were like rotivators going through. They were turning all the land over. They were eating the plants and shoots. They were constantly escaping from their pens. And we got told that this project had ended and there were no more wild boar left. But a few short years ago, we really discovered this was not the case. And now between Glenafric, Glenmoriston and Glengarry, we have thousands and thousands of wild boar, and they are slowly but surely making their way around Loch Ness. Now we tend to see them these days going up towards Inverness, over to the Isle of Skye, and even down towards Fort William. But if you see one, do not stop your car, do not try and touch it or pet it, don't try and give it a little kiss or take a selfie with it. They are big, aggressive creatures. And what's the same as turning on your full beam whilst driving along in a blizzard or a snowstorm. When all you see is particles flying back at you, that's exactly what it is like in the water here. But one thing that can see in this water is our sonar system. So the sonar system is this multicoloured screen that we can all see now. And what sonar is, it's what bats use and it's what dolphins use, and basically it sends out sound waves under the boat. And when that sound wave hits something, it pings back to us, we call it a contact, and it will show up on this screen here. So the black area that we're seeing is the water, the little dots in there are contact, so they could be fish or other creatures. The line that goes down is the earth, and everything else under that is echo phase. Now what we can also see at the bottom left corner of this screen is the surface temperature of Loch Ness. It's quite warm today actually, it's sitting between 12 and 13 degrees, but that is just the top 12 inches of the loch. If you go a little bit deeper, it will drop to 6 degrees, and within about 2 metres of the surface, it drops down to 4 degrees Celsius, which is very, very cold. At the south end of the lochs, eventually that goes out into the Atlantic Ocean. At the north end of the loch, that eventually goes out to the North Sea. So we've got lots and lots of water movement in here, which means Loch Ness never ever freezes. dark blue colour, and that is to indicate just how steep the sides are. There isn't anywhere here at Loch Ness where you can have a leisurely stroll out, be knee deep, and then be like, oh, dare I get up to my hips in this ice cold water? Can I shimmy out a wee bit further? That just does not happen. We've got a little beach further up there, and you can get knee deep out, and then you have to swim because the beach just drops off. But it doesn't drop off 10 feet, it doesn't drop off 20 feet, it drops off 600 feet, right to the very bottom of Loch Ness. And when you think only 2 people have intentionally been to the bottom of Loch Ness, that means more people have explored on the surface of the moon than this cold, dark area that we are now travelling on.
Practically 600 feet now.
On that number, there is currently 632 feet of water below us, and that's not even the deepest part. So we are in freshwater, and we double checked again, and we're definitely not on the coast of the UK, we are here at Loch Ness. And we relayed this information to our sonar manufacturers and the other people, and they all laughed and laughed and laughed and said, yes, of course you are. Yes, definitely, you're all at Loch Ness, aren't you? And then one of them went, oh, actually, we've just looked at the depth of water on that image, and that creature's at 189 metres deep. That is deeper than the North Sea. You really are at Loch Ness, and what the heck is that under your boat? And we went, exactly, what is it? And then, oh, I don't know, but oh my gosh, what is that under your boat? So we were still none the wiser. Now, this is the first time that science is proving there is large creatures in here. So we put this image out to the world, and somebody at Otago University went, we want to come to this lot and do some more science type stuff there, because this has not been on a distillery tour, hasn't your sonar? This sonar has not been speaking to its friends, this is actual science. So they wanted to come here to do a full DNA analysis of Loch Ness. Now, the world of academia has been coming here for over 60 years because they strongly recognise that you cannot have such a large body of water and it not contain giant creatures. So when Otago University came, they did a full DNA analysis on Loch Ness, and they found over 4,000 codes of DNA. So it wasn't just things in the loch, it was things around the loch and over the loch. So there was cat, dog, horse, fish, mouse, bird, you name it. If it lived around here, it had DNA in this loch. But what they also found was over 200 codes of DNA that did not match up with anything anywhere else on the entire planet. So it could be 200 codes of microbial DNA, it could be 200 codes of monster DNA. We do not know. But
It was constructed as a defensive structure. Some natives, known as Picts, built homes on islands with access walkways to shore. Not only did these provide protection from wild animals and easy access for fishing, but they were also very easy to defend. Just beyond the island, you can see the old railway pier. In 1903, the railway line officially opened and connected Fort Augustus to Glasgow. It remained open until 1946, when it was closed due to lack of demand. During its operation, multiple paddle steamers operated from this pier, carrying passengers and supplies to Inverness and other points around the loch. In a moment, we will be re-entering the Caledonian Canal, a remarkable man-made structure designed by Thomas Telford, a renowned engineer of his time. The canal is 60 miles or 98 kilometres in length. Over a third of it was excavated by hand to join the natural locks together. It took 3,000 men around 20 years to complete. It opened in 1822 and connects the North Sea to the Atlantic Ocean, using 29 locks, 10 bridges, and 4 aqueducts. The canal system enables boats to navigate different elevations from coast to coast, with the highest point being 32 metres or 106 feet above sea level. To the left of the canal entrance is Fort Augustus Abbey. Originally a Hanoverian fort, it was built in the early 18th century and used as a military stronghold during Jacobean times. It was partly destroyed by Jacobite warriors using cannon fire, a lucky strike hit the gunpowder storage, and a large portion of the fort was destroyed. The Redcoats fled the building thinking they were under attack by a large Jacobite force. That large force turned out to be 12 inebriated Jacobites fueled by whiskey.
A couple of interesting structures there. I'm afraid there's some.
C'è la neve, il boccio. Ma si vede?
Unfortunately, quite a bit of reflection now. But the one I was looking at was that one up there. Is that one of those enclosed staircases that was built after the actual tower? More research needed, methinks. Unfortunately, I couldn't find out much about this building, other than the fact that it was the clock tower of the now defunct Benedictine monastery. And that is the end of our Loch Ness cruise. There's the flight of lochs heading south from Fort Augustus towards Fort William. Fort Augustus station is out of sight on the left as you get to the top of the lochs behind those trees. Still used today as an educational establishment. The line to the pier went across a bridge just beyond where you see that top loch, much to the annoyance of a lot of people, because the way the section was worked, if a train went down to the pier, you more or less had to wait until it got to the pier before they could clear this bridge. And the whole process often took about 12 minutes. That's why I don't think the traffic lasted much longer than a couple of years. Incredible. I'm now mystified because I'm looking at those bridge piers and I've got to find out what they are. Well, I can tell you that they are indeed the bridge piers of the old Fort Augustus pier branch. Stark reminder of what used to be. The whole idea of this branch was various railways had this plan. They wanted to build a line right the way through where the line of the Caledonian Canal and Loch Ness went all the way up to Inverness. But it never really came to anything because there had already been a line built through to Inverness, and this would have been a bit of an unnecessary duplication, I think. Shame I didn't record any more on this particular occasion, because round the back of the car park, unbeknown to me at the time, on the embankment there, that was where the line used to go through and over the main road on a bridge and then drop down to the pier station. Sometimes it's a bit upsetting what you find out afterwards that could have made an addition to what you filmed, but never mind, that's life. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little tour round, and we'll see you on the next video.